I think we're going to have a great episode today, and it's a special one because we're bringing up one of our listeners to give us a rundown about what they got going on, maybe about how this podcast has positively influenced their life and gotten some of the real estate deals off the ground. So it's going to be a great episode, but I'll kick it back over to you, Patrick. You got anything else you want to say?
I sure do. Not only do I love our guest hat, decide, commit, take action. You guys know the motto. But if you are watching on YouTube, please, please, please hit that like button, drop a comment below. Let us know what you think this episode is going to be about. If you're not already subscribed. And James, let's get into the show.
Let's jump into it, man. So, Anthony, how's it going, man? Glad to have you on the podcast. Let's start by just giving us a brief background about yourself and just tell us where you're coming from.
Yeah. Hey, guys. It's great to be on here. Thank you so much for having me. So, my name's Anthony Scornaienchi. I'm a Philly guy, local Philly guy, born and raised. And this is kind of going to be all about failures to success. So I got into the real estate game. Well, first and foremost, my W-2, I'm a health and phys ed major for the school district of Philadelphia. So your typical blue collar Philly guy, nothing special. And I got into real estate because I needed to buy a house. I was in Philly, South Philly. I was paying almost $1,000 a month just for a bedroom. And I was like, man, this is terrible. Like I could have a mortgage right around here and I could be, owning something and actually building on something. So I ended up researching all the markets in Philadelphia. And at the time, now this is going back 8 or 9 years, there was this neighborhood in Philadelphia called Fishtown. And Fishtown was this little like thriving revival neighborhood that went from like crack houses and like pit bull fighting rings to like the place where every millennial needed to be, and every restaurant owner was heading that way, and every bar owner wanted to build around there. So I was right at the beginning of that, and I was like, you know what, I really think this is going to take off. So
What year was that? Just to give some context, because I'm sure a lot of people look at markets and they're like, how long does gentrification kind of take to play out? So what year were you looking at that market?
Right. So this was February of 2016. I made settlement. So not that long ago, and I know you guys love numbers and everything. So I got the house at 189,000 at settlement. And on top of that, I had done a bunch of research about first-time home buying benefits. And if you live in any metropolitan area, I mean, they offer so many first-time home buying benefits in the major cities. It's insane. And I ended up with a 15K grant spread out over 5 years on the back end of my principal, and a little bit came off every 5 years. So like it was awesome. I mean, this house was definitely it needed some work, it needed some love. I wasn't buying the premier house on the premier street in Fishtown, but I knew the location was popping off. So I got that house, and that started my journey. Now, right around that time, I ended up moving in with somebody, a girl, and it didn't work out. And she ended up leaving, and I was that ignorant boyfriend who never had somebody move in, never asked them to sign a lease or a legal document saying that they were renting from me or splitting the bills. And she ended up coming back and wanting all the money that we split for utilities and bills back plus more after she left. And so I ended up, after that situation, I mean, completely house poor. And I was like, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And this was before anybody was talking about house hacking. This was before anybody was talking about renting out extra bedrooms. At least to me, I had no idea that that's what it was called at the time and everything like that. So I was scrambling and I needed to find a roommate. And at the time, Facebook had connected with this app called Roomster. Have you guys ever heard of that?
No, that's the
I
first
think I
time I've heard
remember.
Yeah, so it was real popular like from 2010 to like maybe 2017, 18, and you would connect your Facebook account with it, and it would match you up based off of like with tenants based off of like your interest and your commonalities. So I ended up using that, and I got a roommate in here, and I mean, he was in my second bedroom. The second bedroom's maybe 10 feet by 7 feet at most. And I was getting $800 a month for it. And the light
Wow.
bulb just went off, man. I mean, it just went off. And I was like, man, if I can do this with this little bit of space, like what else can I do? How else can I do it? And that's really what got me started on the real estate journey. I just started consuming information after that as much as I could, as fast as I could.
So how big is your place? Is it only 2 bedrooms or is it
Yeah,
3 bedrooms?
so my place in Fishtown is a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. It's 937 square feet. It's a tiny guy. It's tiny but mighty. And I was getting $800 a month for one of the bedrooms in 2016. And to give you guys some numbers now, like I was just checking out rents. I'm looking to move out in the next 6 months, and I'm debating on whether to long-term rent it or midterm rent it. I'm definitely going midterm, but we'll talk about that in a second. But long-term rents, we're looking at anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing. You know, just because like you wanted to buy your first house, you know, you started like researching and just going like, all right, where's the next come up spot, you know, like let me do my best to try to find that. It's so funny because back in the day when my wife and I, Danielle, were thinking about buying our first house, we were going to go down in Fed Hill, you know, down in Fed Hill in Baltimore, right off of Church Street. Like that was the spot that everybody would go and
I know Fed
party and
Hill real good.
everything.
Yeah.
And you could get, you know, we were looking at 3 bedroom row homes for like 150, 200 grand. Like you couldn't even buy one for 550, 600 right now, and rents would be like 3,500 a month. So I totally get it. Like,
Well,
you
that's
know,
the lesson right there, man. I mean, when your guys are young, young professional lives, young, starting out your jobs, you're in a position where you can take those risks and live in those areas that maybe are less desirable. Like you don't got a family at this point, so live somewhere that has a lot of potential to change over the next coming years.
so true. So
I
true.
completely agree with that, man. And you know, at the time I didn't know it, but it's crazy because everybody talks about like, oh, you make, the cash flow, the cash flow, the cash flow. And like I was house poor, barely scraping by. And then before you know it, I look up and it's like 5 years later, and my house has already appreciated so much. And like that's where the real wealth is built, is paying down that loan and letting it appreciate, man. Like I just couldn't believe the power of that after that happened.
So I know you're curious. You've probably been checking out Zillow and whatever. Like, what do you think that property is worth right now?
So actually, I had to in 2021. I cashed out, refied it, and that was what got me on my STR journey. And at that time, this was back in January of 2021. It appraised for 305,000.
Nice. I
And
mean,
like
that's
I got to let the listeners know, like this house still needs work. It does not have central AC. Like I still got it. My bathroom is the original clawfoot tub. So like this is pure appreciation. This isn't because I forced major equity into it. This isn't because I built another bathroom downstairs. This is literally me just time in the market.
Buy real estate and wait. And I think that's underappreciated. People, sometimes get into real estate thinking they got to move mountains immediately. But the way that your loan is structured and paying down that principal over time, that's really where you're going to build your equity. And of course, as we've already discussed, buying somewhere where the market is going to push the value of your house up without you having to lift the finger. I mean, that's a great way to go about it.
Right. And like with the appreciation too, you don't realize when you go to cash out refi. So when I had my original loan, was somewhere in the 5%. I don't remember exactly, but I was paying like 1,300 a month, right? With PMI and everything. Cause I did the first time home buyer, it was like 7% down, all that good stuff. With that $15,000 grant and the appreciation, when I cashed out refi, got 78K, and I went back up to the 30-year amount, and my mortgage only went up $100 a month. So the power of that time in the market mixed with that cash out refi allowed me to gain access to $78,000, and only, it increased my monthly lifestyle, $100 a month.
Well, what was your new rate? You said you were about 5% when you bought it.
So
would you refinance?
currently I'm at 3.37.
never
So it wasn't
refinancing that.
Right. Never.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was checking out my primary just yesterday. I was like, damn, I wonder what my interest rate was because I just couldn't remember. 3%. I'm like, I've thought about selling this house in the next couple of years, but like at that interest rate, it would almost be criminal to sell
Right.
it. And I've been telling a lot of people that. I've got some clients who are looking to sell their houses and they've locked in these like sub 3 interest rates. Someone literally has 2.85% mortgage on a house in Mount Airy, Maryland that appreciated, 200 grand. And he's currently renting it. He's like, I don't know if I should keep it or sell it. I'm like, man, it's so tough because you're sitting on all that equity they built up. Of course, you can refinance it, but you've got a huge portion of your loan tied up on a 2.85% interest rate. Like, um, people need to think really critically right now selling if they have mortgages that low. I mean, mortgage rates that low. What do you think, Patrick? What do you think about that?
Man, I completely agree. Like, I think a lot of people are going to hold on to their houses. I mean, with the current, I mean, we're sitting here recording this end of October. I think James posted the other day on his Instagram at James Rippion 7.3 30-year mortgages, So, I mean, we're talking a $300,000 house. You're paying $1,000 more a month, if not more than somebody. So, like, that means the rent appreciation is going to be huge. I'd really look into that. And what people can do is, one, they can rent the property, or two, they can use the equity that they have inside that property to go get a line of credit on their investment property. Everybody thinks you can go get a HELOC on your investment property. If you go to the bank asking for a HELOC on your investment property, they're going to tell you no, because they don't do home equity lines of credit. They'll do a line of credit. They'll give you a business line of credit based on the equity inside there, but they're not going to do a traditional HELOC like a primary residence. So there's other options to access that equity inside of there. But I personally don't think we're going to be seeing, 3% interest rates for a very long time. Maybe in the upper fours. But if you go back and listen to the beginning couple episodes, James and I predicting back in like January and February where we'd be, I think both of us said like 5%. And here we are at 7 before the end of the year. So we do not have a magic ball. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that. All right. So you got 3% interest rate, cash out refinance. You got 78 grand basically for just waiting. Now, what are you doing with that money, man?
So I decided I'm running to the Poconos and I'm going to buy my first short-term rental. And I, started out coming from being a kid raised in Philly. Like the Poconos was one of the, you either went to the Poconos or you went to the Jersey Shore when you vacation. So I had a little bit of experience with the area. I'm a skier, so I've skied a couple of their mountains up there and everything. So I knew it was a vacation destination place. How much of it I didn't know. So I had to start researching, and in those areas, those mountain areas, there's a ton of different variables. Even in terms of like, a lot of those mountain areas and that type of vacation destination area, they build these small communities with crazy amenities that they give their homeowners and the property owners in and around. Like the place that I ended up choosing, I picked because it was so all the communities in the Poconos, they get rated every year from the state of Pennsylvania as like Gold Star communities up there. So mine was like a Gold Star community 7 years in a row. It had every amenity from lakes, heated pools, saunas, gyms, game rooms, all the way in the wintertime to their own ice skating rink and ski hills. So I coined the term for the Poconos, there's a reason for every season. And that's what really drew me up there, was because their seasonality, it really only has minor, shoulder seasons. So that really attracted me. And I went up there and bought a little 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,073 square foot A-frame cabin up in the Poconos.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so that was your first time getting into short-term rentals. And what really drew you to the short-term rentals instead of buying a place, there in Philly and taking that traditional rental route? What was it that really struck you about the short-term rentals?
So I really got to shout out my sister and my brother-in-law, and they just settled on their third short-term rental. They were the ones that got me on the boat and really got me thinking about it. They got their first short-term rental. Now I'm talking 5, 6, 7 years ago down at the Jersey Shore. And man, I mean, this place was a little 2-bedroom, 1 bath, like shore town. Just it was a small house, and the amount of money they made in one summer was like insane to me. And at first they started off with it saying, we're only going to rent it out in August to cover the yearly taxes, insurance, and all of our utilities. Like, we just want this place for us, and we're going to rent it out 1 month and it's going to offset. Well, their first year, they rented it out 1 month and they ended up with more money than they ever thought they could have made off this little 2-bedroom, 1 bath. So everybody's ears and eyes kind of perked up when we were like, they were the pioneers of the STRs for our family. So that's really what got me into it. When I was talking with them, we had these discussions about like seasonality, and they were, at the time, they were struggling finding renters for that house, like from the, November to March shoulder season. And I was like, man, the shore gets stressful with that because, you have these amazing summers, and then it's so cyclical where you have these booming summers and then it's dead. It's a ghost town. And like, it got really hard for them at one point to like fill that vacancy. And even though they made enough for the year, they want, just seeing how hard it was to get that, I was like, I don't want that to be my first experience. I just didn't want that and didn't feel it was necessary with the Poconos 2 hours the other way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I totally get it. Totally understand. So, all right. So you were like, all right, I like the short-term rental game. I feel like I can crush it, make some cash flow, you know. So how long ago did you buy your first Airbnb in the
So that
Poconos?
was summer of 2021. I made settlement in May. And then, being a teacher, I had that whole summer off to go work on the property. So I did kind of the hybrid where I worked on it myself, and then I hired a contractor just for time. I needed to compress time and I needed to start making money on that property right away. So I ended up hooking up with this contractor, and man, like, I hear all these contractor stories, all the time. And like, I was just so lucky. Like, I just hit the nail on the head with this first contractor. And he was amazing, man. Like, he walked me through so many things. Like, he was the guy, we were working in the house together that summer, and he was there pretty much all summer with me. And he was the guy that was like stopping to teach me things and show me things and how to do electrical and how to make this work and what happens if I can't get that and everything. So that summer really was like the grind point, man. Like, I was doing 12 to 17-hour days there, like not even eating, just like,
Well, what kind
just
of
trying to get
work
this
were you
thing.
doing at this property? Were you doing like a full renovation, tearing out the kitchens, bathrooms, or
It was sort of like a light heavy renovation. So I had to tear out all the floors, and we were redoing all the floors, and then there was just a lot of rot and structural issues below. So, the rule of thumb for STRs is calculate how much you need and always add more to it, because you're going to find stuff and stuff's going to happen. So I then found out that the foundation, so typical mountain chalets, like, you have that little 3-foot crawl space, and they never ventilated it. They never put a dehumidifier in it. So the whole time, man, that moisture was just building up and had nowhere to go. And it was just going right into that subflooring and that support beam. So then I had found out that, my concrete foundation, it was split. And I learned, the pencil rule. If there's a crack in your concrete foundation and you can stick a pencil through it, you got to get that addressed right away. That crack is way too big. So then I had to call out an excavation team, and they had to do the French ditch around it and do a sump pump and then jack up the support and put a vapor barrier down.
oh man, are
So,
you panicking at this point, man? Because like I'm just like I'm sweating on this side of the camera thinking about all the work you're having to put in there.
dude, and I'm like, I never accounted for any of that. And it was like, $11,000 later. And I'm like, how am I going to come up with this money? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I got to be honest, that's probably not too bad for foundation work.
Yeah. And
I
it wasn't
definitely
like
thought
I
you were
was,
going to say more.
yeah, I was lucky that way too. And like, so my father was a business owner, and he had the gift of gab, man. And he had the gift of establishing relationships and always getting a discounted price with everything. Like people ended up giving him a discounted price, and they ended up being his best friend at the same time. So
Dude,
I
that's like
kind
every
of,
Philly guy, man. I feel like that's like the Philly go-to right there, like
yeah,
everybody.
it was just like, the gift of gab and the conversation and talking about the guy. And actually it was crazy. So the foundation guy, he kept when he was there giving the estimates, he kept getting calls about his kids. And he's like, just out of nowhere, he's like, yeah, my kids are struggling in school, da 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 da. So I ended up, me being a teacher, and I was like, yo, this summer you got to go to Barnes and Noble and you got to get these books for your kids, and this will help them, but you got to just have them do a page every day. So he started having them do that, and he was doing it with them. And he came back and he's like, man, this is helping so much. I can already see the impact. And so we negotiated a little bit more. And how they say real estate's all about relationships. It took a half-hour conversation to get $4,000 knocked off of that job.
Mhm. Yeah,
Love
I
it,
mean that's
man.
that's really valuable, man. I mean, every time I talk to a contractor or any service provider, trying to engage in that conversation a little bit beyond business. I've got this one cleaning person who will always call. I just sent her the simplest jobs to do, and she'll always call me. And this is her good side of doing business. She'll call me, chit chat for about 10 minutes, and then get into the business after that. She wants to know update with the life, how the kids doing, all that kind of stuff. And that goes a long way because, like, I know I'm gonna have a good conversation with her every time she calls and I send work to her, and it just feels better. And then you're getting these discounts on top of that.
Right, man. And that's with everything, man. Like, in even, more so the STRs, because it is 1000% a hospitality business. So you have to maintain these, like for example, I have a new cleaner that I just hired, and I got to talking with her. And she said she was, having a little bit of trouble getting childcare while she was cleaning my house. And I was like, well, bring him, sit him on the couch. Like, I have a Roku TV, put up YouTube, whatever he loves to watch. Like, just let him come and chill. Like, I don't mind about that. And like, she was like, are you serious, really? And I was like, yeah. And then, we got to talking about her son. I'm a teacher, so I always ask about people's kids. And I found out that, like, her son is obsessed with Legos. Well, bet your bottom dollar he's getting a little Lego gift set this Christmas, and that's just going to make her world. And like,
Mhm.
all that little stuff, man, it's a Lego gift set. Like, it was $15. And like, that's going to make her world. And I know she's going to clean my house and have an eye on my house. And like, she's my boots on the ground. Like, she's getting everything. I mean, I asked her to change a light bulb the other day. There was 2 light bulbs out, and I was like, listen, I know that's not in our cleaning contract, so I'll throw you an extra $25. Like, all those little things, all that, they show that you care too, and that, you're asking above from them, and you're willing to give that because you recognize their efforts. Like, it makes such a difference.
Right. And she's going to want to do such great work for you too, because she's not going to want to lose you as a client. Because I'm sure she probably gets treated on suboptimally with some of our other clients too. And plus, in the future, maybe she didn't do something as you perhaps may have expected. She's going to come out there right away and take care of it too,
Right.
because she's got that respect built up with you.
Yeah, man. It's like that golden rule. Take care of those that take care of you,
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. All right, so we are an entire summer of renovating ourselves with a contractor to speed up the process. We're 11 grand in the hole, literally in the hole, because the hole was not ventilating properly. You know, we're tutoring kids, we're all this. So, you know, what happens now? Like, where are we at now in the story? Like, when's this bad boy getting listed? How much money are we making? Like, let the people know.
Let's go into the numbers. I love it. Yeah. So all in, I'll just bring you guys up to the numbers. So all in for this house to get started, down payment, renovations, and even surprised foundation work, $71,000 in. So if you guys, remember, I said I got the 78 cash out refi. So I am at the skin of my teeth praying to God that nothing else goes wrong, because I literally have $7,000 to my name left to fix this property. And like, again, I'm talking about like failing to success. Like, I'm sort of that ready, fire, aim person. And like nobody ever told me like, yeah, you should have 3 to 6 months of a security fund before you get into any of these ventures. Like I had nothing.
I don't know,
So
man. Like I think having that $7,000 buffer is actually more than a lot of investors get into their first deal with. So I think as far as that goes, like pretty good there. But yeah, I mean, it always is worthwhile to have reserves. When I talk to new investors, they always think that they can get in for just 20% if it's a 20%, 80% LTV loan product. I'm like, no, closing costs plus you bet your bottom dollar you're going to want to have some reserves for things that you don't expect to come up. So, I mean, there's a great lesson to be learned there.
yeah, absolutely, for sure. So the listing went live September 1st, 2021. And I am checking my phone every 20 seconds. I'm checking the Airbnb app. And oh, let me preface with saying I wanted this to be as passive as possible. So I went with a property manager. I underwrote the deal with a property manager coming in at 25% of commissions right away. So just to let the people know, like I am a hustler, man. Like I work full-time teaching, then I tutor after school. And at that time, I was also bartending. So like I was already pulling 64, 72-hour weeks. And I was like, I can't have any of this like come back to me. Like, I just don't want to be bothered, for the beginning and being such a newbie at it. Like, I was like, I need this guidance. So I had a property manager come in and, right off the bat, it was a hit and it's getting booked. And, they say when you first start a first listing in the short-term rental world, you got to undercut your daily rates so that you get that traction and you get people booking. So I ended up undercutting and I ended up with this guy who was this massive like business traveler and Marriott rewards traveler, and he did like the Marriott homes. So he did the STR world just on Marriott side. And this was unbeknownst to me, and he booked it with him and his wife and just gave me the biggest stellar review I could have ever had. So like as a first time and like, your first 5 reviews, you're always like nail biting it, just waiting to see when the people like submit those reviews and everything, because, until you get up to 18, 19, 20, 25 reviews, one little 4-star review, 3-star review can throw your whole rating off and you can drop and plummet quick. So it's sort of like this really stressful first time experience as a host.
That's crazy, man. I mean, I didn't know that. And I think a lot of our, listeners out there who haven't tried Airbnb yet, are kind of unaware of some of those things. I know we listed, our first Airbnb, and we're kind of trying to go through the same thing. Like we just got our license and it's listed live and we're waiting for that, first booking that actually goes through. I know we kind of talked offline and different things like that. But what are some of those like first couple things that if someone's thinking about doing short-term rental or going to list something on Airbnb, like what are the top couple things that they should make sure they have in order before they even hit that live button or get that first guest?
So I'm going to start like, I feel like nobody talks about this, and it's one of the biggest things not to mess up when you get into the short-term rental industry, and it's insurance. There are so many people who, when I talk to them about their short-term rental, I'm like, yo, what insurance do you have? What are you doing? Like, what's your liability looking like? And they're like, oh, I called up the person who does my primary residence and they just kind of gave me like a rental insurance, or they just kind of gave me this like umbrella policy that's like not even $500,000 coverage. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like, you're in a whole nother game now. Like, you're in the hospitality industry. There are so many things that can go wrong on your property, from parties that go wrong to, anything you can think of, a dog getting on your property and biting one of your guests while you're there. Like, so for me, I always point people to Proper Insurance. Proper is one of the big heavyweights in the short-term rental game. And they are kind of like the coverage that they provide. I went through so many, man. Like I went through Travelers has their own version of it. Allstate has their own version of it. And they are all subpar, in my opinion, to what Proper offers. Now, Proper is very much more expensive. I mean, so you're paying for it, but you're paying for that peace of mind. You get $1 million policy. They comb through everything in your house, like even down to like they will charge you more if you have bunk beds, because if that person has to climb up into the bunk bed and if they fall. But if you're not covered on that, man, like you are going to eat it so bad.
So what is your policy run for you? Just curious, so people can have kind of a framework for how much, you know, a good
Yeah, so like
policy for STR would cost.
for instance, I have my primary is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and I go through Allstate, and I'm about 800 and change on that a year. And my proper insurance policy for a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath is about 1,900.
Double.
Okay.
So it's doubling up. And that's
Mhm.
without having the bunk beds. Like I know, if memory serves me right, the bunk beds were that was an extra add-on of like $25 a month. So like you have to consider everything, and like you even have to consider like it goes a little bit higher. You know, the thing with like mountain STRs is like, does it have a hot tub? Does it have a wood burning fireplace? If you have a gas burning fireplace, you pay less in insurance than if you have a wood burning fireplace. There's less risk involved. The person doesn't have to light it. They don't have to bring the logs in. The logs can't fall back out if they stack it too high. You know, yada, 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 all the way down to if you have a hot tub, your insurance is a little bit higher.
Yeah, all things that you really don't think of. So, all right. So for everybody out there, insurance, that's one of the big ones. What about some of the other stuff that people talk about? Pictures, description, any certain things like, do you have your friends rent it out first to get a couple good reviews? Like, what are some tips and tricks, man, to like get you going?
So one of the biggest things, like when you design your Airbnb or your short-term rental, I'm not going to say Airbnb, it's short-term rental. When you design your short-term rental, you have to actively go on to the market that you bought your property on, and you have to see what everybody else is doing. And I think Avery Carl calls it well, I think it's her husband, Luke Carl, actually coined it the enemy method, where you go on and you look at all the competition. And it's great because Airbnb allows you to pick, all right, I want a 2-bedroom. I want 2 bathrooms. I want it pet friendly. Mine was pet friendly. And I want to see what everybody else is doing there. And you can go down to even selecting, I want to see what the houses look like, who have the air conditioners. I want to see what the houses look like, who have the game rooms. I want to see. So you have to find, it's funny, the middle of the road, right? The 50th percentile performing Airbnbs, they're basic, man. It's not that hard to get into that 75th percentile. And the thing is, you don't even have to be that creative. Just go on any of these OTAs, these online travel agency platforms, and start looking around and poking around and seeing what other people are doing. You're not recreating the wheel. Now, you can add your personal touches. One of the big things that's been a smash hit at my Airbnb was I went to a local coffee roaster up in the Poconos, and I was like, hey, my name's Anthony. I just opened up this Airbnb. I love your coffee. I'm offering a full service coffee bar at my Airbnb, and I want to have an exclusive blend from a local roaster at my Airbnb. And we sat and we did an entire tasting. I brought my friends with me. It was like awesome. And they gave me like 7 different blends, explained every single one. This is an Ethiopian blend. This is a Colombian blend. I got to pick mine. And then I've been branding that and marketing it in my Airbnb. And I, just from that little significant thing, nobody in my community that I could see from the pictures of the enemy method was offering that. And it's gotten such great feedback. People are like,
how are you marketing this? Like, what does that look like? Are you putting your own logo on it? And
yes. So literally I combined, they're called Black and Brass Coffee. They're up in the Poconos. If you guys ever end up there, anybody of the listeners, go check them out. They're doing phenomenal things with coffee. So I designed my own logo and I put their own logo and I brought them together. And I did the Instagram reel where it was like this huge celebration of us merging together. And we had this exclusive blend. And I even have it on my listing pictures on the Airbnb. So I let anybody who's clicking through that listing know, when you book me, I care so much about the local economy. I care so much about you, and I care so much about coffee that I'm bringing it all together. And you're going to have this great morning coffee experience at my Airbnb.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that really is.
Yeah. And like with design and everything, like, one of the biggest things that I realized was like, if you want to, design and have it hit, it's got to be pops the color. It can't be the basic run of the mills, grays, blues, blacks and beiges. You got to make pops of color. You got to make it fun. And there's so many of those basic ones in that 50th percentile category, those Airbnbs that are performing in that 50th percentile. The ones that stand out are the ones that have these really funky color schemes. And how I found mine, it was easy. I went on Etsy and I picked out a color palette, and I did not deviate from that color palette. I screenshotted it, and I just went into Home Depot and I was like, I need this color in all your paint, and I need this color in your paint. And I sat there with the Home Depot woman, and she just was like, no, with the color strips, she's like, not that one, we're close, not that one, we're close, until I nailed it. And I just made pops of color all throughout the house.
I'm looking at your Instagram now, and I'm checking out your cabinets. You got this really bright blue going on in there. It's like it pops, man. And they got this nice blue chair in the foreground there too. I mean, it adds some detail.
Right. And that all came from one standard color palette, and I didn't deviate from that from the entire house. Now, where I did deviate, and what I do want to stress to people is, like, people are going to a short-term rental for an experience. They want to have something that they don't have at home, something that they don't see all the time. So I decided to make every single room in the house completely different from the last. So the kitchen has, these live edge wood countertops with like that 70 color, like weird blue, like flare to it, with a coffee bar. And then the kitchen table has all mismatched chairs that I got from a thrift shop and just painted them based off of that palette. And then you walk into, the family room where the fireplace is, and these retro 70 bright mustard yellow velvet couches with, a jet black fireplace with gold trim, and then these crazy like mantelpieces and all this retro flair. And then my bedrooms are completely different from them. I have, my second bedroom is a 1950s ski room. So I got all the vintage skis, all the vintage skiing photographs, even down to like, I got a 1950s like fan, like the old metal fans that they used to make. Like, just had fun with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And these were not expensive to do. Like, I got all these prints off art.com. And like, when I signed up, they had like a 25% off, first time buyer's fee. And it was like, I got them, and then I got frames from Amazon, black frames from Amazon, and just put them up.
So I can tell, like, you've put a lot of consideration into furnishing this place. You've got great details in there. I know every time I go stay at an Airbnb, it's really cool to have a unique experience and have a theme going on throughout that. Considering the special and unique nature of, what you built there, what was the budget for building that out? And how are you doing this affordably?
So, I always tell everybody, you with the budget, it's like you got to be balling on a budget. And especially if it's your first time, and you're kind of, I'm a single teacher from the school district of Philadelphia. Like, I'm not lighting the world on fire with my paycheck. So I had to pay attention to every nickel and dime. And that's where the thrift stores come in. That's where getting the discounts for first time buyers, like the art.com, and that's where Amazon comes in and everything. Now, there's a difference between budgeting and then buying the worst quality, low quality stuff. And that's what you kind of want to not do. Like, there's certain things you can buy at Walmart, and then there's certain things you can't. And there's certain things, so really, I always encourage people, get to your STR and figure out every local thrift store, because you're going to find all these amazing little gems that's good quality furniture. I mean, I found Pottery Barn furniture in thrift stores that was, 90% discounted from what it would have been if I bought it brand new.
Another great tip: find estate sales. Estate sales, these people have, people who are passing away, very unfortunate, but they bought quality shit in their lifetime and they held on to it, and it's withstood the test of time. It's not some IKEA bolt this crap together with two plastic pegs. It's like handcrafted wood. So if you got, an Airbnb in a rustic area or a beach area, like wherever, go hit some estate sales in the market that you've got your Airbnb. You're going to find some really quality furniture. Maybe stay away from some of the retro 70s couches and stuff. I don't know. Maybe it fits into, who knows? But, that's another great tip for finding some quality furnishings.
Yeah. And like, Amazon is your best friend, man. So one of the things that I looked at, because I knew I was balling on a budget, was it had to come fully furnished. because I needed to be able to pick and choose pieces that I wanted to use from, the previous owners. Now, the previous owners were 73 years old, and they hadn't changed up a lick of style in that house since probably 1987, so I had to get rid of 90% of the stuff. But again, like I have a Four Seasons porch on my property, and it's that old school wooden, classic, rustic mountain cabin furniture that has been around since the 20s that hasn't really changed. Well, all I had to do was go on Amazon and buy furniture covers for that piece of furniture, and it completely changed the vibe and dynamic of the entire room. And like that was an $11 investment, and it changed up everything.
So, all right. So we got the furnishing aspect, the being creative aspect, all of this. So, all right, it's time to give the people what they want. So, how much are you actually making off this thing, man? Like, break the numbers down for us.
All right. So my first year with it, I'm 71K all in. And after my first year, I grossed 36,000 and took a net profit of 18,000. Now, I want to let everybody know, I want to preface, this is also a unique situation where the numbers are still great, right? My cash on cash return is still great. But I ended up not being so satisfied with my property manager, who was taking 25%. And what I didn't realize in the contract was that she only would do Airbnb. So she would not get me on other platforms. And at one point during the shoulder season, she was just like, oh, that's life. And I'm only doing Airbnb. And I'm panicking because, again, like I'm pretty much house poor on this asset right now. Like I've spent everything. I have a minimal emergency fund. So I'm like, well, I got to get bookings. So I ended up ending that contract with her, did my due diligence on property management, which, again, rookie mistake. My brother-in-law was like, hey, I have this person who manages properties up in the Poconos. Like, we can do that. And no shame to her. Like, it was in the contract. She only did Airbnb. This was a rookie mistake that I didn't pick up on. So this is all on me. She does phenomenal, but I needed more exposure. And there's this big looming debate in the STR community, because it's like, do you just stay on Airbnb and do you really hone in on Airbnb's algorithm and get your reviews in and all your bookings from there? Or do you go venture out to all these other OTAs and just try to get as much bookings as possible? And people get really scared because if you have block days, there's all these theories behind Airbnb's algorithm and all these OTAs algorithms. And like, if you get booked on another platform and you got to black out your days on Airbnb, the algorithm senses that and they're going to drop you in, exposure on the Airbnb OTA and everything. Personally, in my opinion, once I got a new property management, now this property management I did my research and I wanted to be on Marriott Homes and I wanted to be on booking.com. And some of these, you'd have to have a certain amount of a portfolio to get on there. Marriott Homes is the big one. Everybody asks, how do I get on Marriott Homes? How do I get on Marriott Homes? You need to have a portfolio, I think, of no less than 40 properties. So how do you do that as a first-time STR investor? Somebody who's, doesn't have that, is not going to have that anytime soon. You hook up with a property manager who has that portfolio size. So I hooked up with a property manager who had that, and I negotiated with them that they were going to only take 15%. They were willing to go that far. So I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be great. And since then, it's been amazing.
Well, what's incredible about that is you're going to have those constant stream of people who want to stay there because, correct me if I'm wrong, they're getting points for staying there, aren't they? And they're just racking those up. So like if you got people who are doing business conferences, whatever, they're looking for something outside of Airbnb too. So this is, potentially a golden goose for people to niche down and, generate more revenue. Of course, you've got this hurdle, finding that property manager who manages specifically in this program, but you're going to find a niche clientele that's probably going to be very loyal to your brand.
And here's even, here's a little secret to everybody out there who's thinking about, debating whether or not they should get a property manager, because it is a high barrier. They are taking anywhere from 15 to 25. Some of them take 30%. if you find a property manager who can get you on these platforms and get that exposure and work your property and maximize bookings and maximize revenue, the cost of management is irrelevant, because you will make way more than you ever thought you could, than you ever really could, doing it by yourself or with somebody, of lesser talents and abilities. And what also opened you up with Marriott Homes is, James, you hit the nail on the head. These are business people. These are people traveling who are going around areas who might want to stay at your property for a month, 3 months. I have somebody right now. I just got my first booking. It starts November 3rd. It goes until February 6th. I got a 3-month booking, and this was a repeat person who I booked from Marriott, loved my property so much and was like, hey, what's the discount you can give me on the direct booking? I mean, I was dancing. I was tickled that I got that booking and that it came back that way. So you're looking at these people who are business travelers who, they may travel there for the business and then they want to bring their family back. This is what happened. He wants to bring his family back for the holiday season and the ski season. Done.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories like that where people, not necessarily just in the business realm of things, but when people go, summer somewhere, winter somewhere, whatever they're going to do, they'll find that one house that they like, and they're starting to build memories there, and they want to bring their family there for the next 20 years, and they're gonna try to book you well into the future and just be that family that continuously books. And I don't think that you get that unless you've done what you're doing, is providing that experience, that unique environment that they could come into and have an awesome experience with the coffee, the bright colors, and they'll just get that vibe that they just want to repeat, come to. I think that's incredible.
Right. And it all comes down to, when you design that STR, you're giving them a story, you're giving them experience. And then the next biggest thing is that hospitality, man. You gotta become the best version of yourself as a host with every single client. And it all comes down to response time, to accommodations. And the reality of it is things are gonna go wrong. And I have a bunch of stories of where things went wrong and where I could have gotten way less than a 4 or 5-star review. And the reason I didn't was because they were like, man, we saw your response time. We saw how much you cared. We saw how much you got the maintenance guy out there to fix it, the pest control guy out there to fix it. Like, we understand these things happen. We're in the mountains. A mouse may come in the house. We understand the tub may leak, but like the way you handled it, there was I was hosting a family actually, who, certain things just went wrong. The tub started leaking, and then they lost electricity. And again, it's that relationship and establishing that rapport. And I was like, guys, I am so sorry this is happening. I promise you this has never happened before. And there's a local restaurant right over across the street from my house. And I was like, guys, I just threw $100 on my credit card at there. Go get dinner on me. Go have a couple drinks. Go decompress while my maintenance guy is there, and come back and this will all be taken care of. Well, that lit them up. Like, they forgot about the problem instantly. It was never an issue after that.
That's incredible, Anthony. I mean, you're killing it, man. You're netting $18,000 with this property. You're house hacking in Philly, but we're curious. Tell us a little bit about your bigger picture goals. Like, where are you going from here with your investment portfolio? And tell us how you're scaling up into this industry.
Yeah. So, well, I took your advice on, I think it was like 2 or 3 podcasts ago, where you had the person on about writing that piece of paper and putting it up on your fridge. So basically what I'm looking to do is I want to start in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania has some serious markets. So I got the house in Philly that I'm going to midterm rent, right? I got the house in the Poconos, and then Pennsylvania also has Lancaster, right? And they also have Seven Springs. So these are little parts, and then you have Pittsburgh and you have Erie. So these are serious markets. So I was talking to my girlfriend, and I was like, we were just talking about our future, and she's on the STR train too and loves it and loves the idea. And I was like, I want us to become the prince and princess of PA. Like, I want to get a short-term rental or a midterm rental in each one of these markets and become the prince and princess of PA. And then after that, I want to swing into, we're big, like, mountain people. We're big hikers. We're big. I mean, we just got done a summer out in Montana. So, I mean, the whole experience, we made a promise to ourselves we would get a short-term rental in Montana. But we want to start with the East Coast. And we said we would start going north. So next big thing is New York. Get out there somewhere in the Catskills, somewhere along Lake George. You know, you have these Lake Placid, these amazing ski towns, and, you know, and then work our way up and down the East Coast. How I want to get there, how I want to scale. For me, it's all about leverage. So like, and I want to go back, Pat, I want to talk about that line of credit, because that just plucked my heartstrings, man. Like, I am going through the rough of it right now with lines of credit. And again, this is failing to success because you don't know what you don't know. So I went through 33 lenders, different local banks, calling them. And it was my verbiage that literally got me nowhere. So I'm saying to these people, hey, let me backtrack. When I bought the property, and since then, since it's appreciated, the STR, I have about, if I do 80% loan to value on a line of credit, I have about 106,000 line of equity that I can use. So that's some serious equity sitting there, and it's killing me that it's sitting there, because, you know, that return on equity is a big deal and you have to consider that. Well, I'm going through all these banks and I'm calling up all these local lenders and I'm like, hey, I want to take out a line of credit on my rental property. And they're like, rental property? Nope, click, won't do it. And then I was like, hey, you know, I will call again. I'm like, hey, not consciously thinking about what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. I want to take out a line of credit on my short-term rental. And they're like, you Airbnb? We don't do that. We don't want nothing to do with it. Click. So shout out to Felipe Mejia. Is that how I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. He has been teaching me so much on Instagram. He's the line of credit guy that has really, you know, got the wheels spinning for me. And you guys, like, if you have equity, if you have a minimum, and like he likes to say 50 grand, like I'm literally going tomorrow to a local bank on this property, since the cash out refi and a little bit of appreciation, I'm going to get 36,000 out. Cause like, I want to squeeze every drop out. And that 36 is just to be like, you know, he always says like, you should have that as your emergency fund so that you can use your cash to go do something else. So in order for me to scale, I realized that I have to leverage every asset in every way that I need to do that. So once I get this $106,000 line of credit, I plan to scale up pretty quickly through digital real estate. Now, Pat, I talked to you a little bit about that a couple months ago, and I kind of got your wheels spinning on. What do you guys know about that?
I know that I know nothing. So we can start there.
Okay, so digital real estate is, for me, and how I got hooked up with it was a conversation on a Facebook short-term rental group. I made friends with this woman, and she was talking, and she was a retired teacher who is now financially free. And I was like, man, like, I want to be just like you when I grow up, you know? So we're talking, and she's like, hey, what do you know about digital real estate? And I'm like, nothing. I know nothing. So what it is essentially, I have a company that I'm hooked up with who I give them $6,000, right? And I am the owner of a domain, an internet domain. And essentially, long story short, what they do is they have these companies already lined up that want to get onto my domain. And the company that I work with, this capital company, they basically manage, promote, and do everything for exposure of that small business. So right now, like, I only have one right now, but it's a Minnesota siding company. And they brought this company onto my domain, and this capital company manages them, manages their website, gets them up in the top 3 search categories in Google, builds up all the SEO and everything, and maintains it. And they get we do a 25-75% split. So that capital company gets 25% of everything we earn, and I get 75%. Now, they will not settle with any company anything less than $500 a month. So they tell you to keep so it's a $6,000 investment, $500 a month. They get 25%. I get 75%. It's 125, 375. So when you look at it, was explained to me as, all right, if you put $6,000 down on a house and you got $375 a month from your renters, would that be a good investment? And of course, anybody who can run numbers on real estate and what that would mean and look like, you're like, yeah, that would be great. So they, that's how I, my ears perked up and I started doing it. And there is a bit of a seasoning period. So you have to, in order for the SEO to build up and all that stuff on the internet, they tell you to give it 6 months. Well, I'm 3 months into my 6 months and I'm already getting paid out $50 a month. So what I want to do, what I'm looking to do, and again, this is shout out to Felipe because he blew my mind with this, was flip a line of credit. I want to take this $106,000 line of credit and I want to buy domains with it. And it's an interest-only loan. So what I want to do is with my first domain, I want to pay back that interest only, wait the 6-month seasoning period. And when those domains kick in, pay it all back as quick as I can, rinse and repeat and keep going. And I want to turn this thing into a money-making machine that is then going to turn over and buy me more real estate.
Patrick, you're muted, buddy.
I said, okay. I think James has a little bit of experience with the domain type of thing. Not like this though. I mean,
yeah, my experience is the exact opposite. Bought a whole bunch of domains, and they're very shitty domains, and I lost a bunch of money. Probably about a bunch relative, but probably $4,000, lost. But maybe I didn't know that I could put those domains to use and in this kind of manner. So correct me if I'm wrong. Right? They're acquiring the domain, they're building up the SEO, and then they're finding the business to kind of sell that domain to, or what is the order of operations?
You get the domain, the business gets put in, they build up the SEO via the business.
After the fact, okay.
That's where the 6 months come in. Now, one of the biggest things was like, all right, what happens if this business doesn't perform? What if nobody clicks on them on Google and everything? They give the business 3 months to see what they can do with it, to fix it. And if not, the business gets booted off your domain and they bring in somebody else who's waiting on the queue. So really I said, what's the loss of investment? Like what are my risks here? And they said, really just time. If it doesn't perform, we boot it off. You got to wait a little bit longer. Now you got to wait again to build it up and everything. And so, there is that risk involved and there is that, that inherent, like what could happen, every investor wants to know that and see what but to me, to start off with $6,000 and to potentially make 375, like I was like, shoot, I'm in, like, let's just try this. Now I only bought one. Like I didn't want to go all in and, have something potentially, go down, but I'm like, man, if it's $6,000, it's $6,000. And at the time when I saw the power of the net cash flow that I was getting from the STR, I was like, I'll just give you round numbers. Like I grossed 22,000 this summer from my short-term rental. 22,000. I was like, man, I can give up 6,000 even if I never get anything back from it. I'll make that back in half a summer,
Yeah, me personally, like what I would do is I would take like half that money and buy another STR and then, keep slowly adding until the first one starts meeting the expectations that, they set for you before I go dumping it again. Cause the STR thing works. You're still on like seeing if the other thing kind of works. You know what I mean?
Right. So for me, that was a big deal. So the rules that I set for myself and sort of the contingencies that I set was it has to be performing for 3 months. The first 3 months, I have to see it perform fully. And I have to have 3 months worth of reserves for that interest only payment specifically set aside for that if it doesn't work out. So, and with the interest only, like I'm looking at a 10-year draw period. And for example, with that, I'm looking at the next part of it I want to do is take out 5 more domains at 35,000. And my interest only is looking at about $200 a month interest only. That being said, if I'm making 375, I got 175 a month buffer to cushion that. And I already have, again, like I said, my 3 months of what if this whole thing just collapses on me, and I have 3 months to pay it and sort of figure out what I'm going to do next.
Well, I think
Makes
that's
sense.
also, you're looking at this from a worst case scenario viewpoint as well. So like you're not overly optimistic, and I think that's great for mitigating your risk too. I also think this is going to work out incredibly. I'm often thinking about ways that new investors can get into investing. if they just don't have the cash saved up or can't, for whatever reason, find a first time home buyer situation to get into that they feel good with, like this could be a really good potential opportunity for people. That, and I've also heard, like, we've had conversations about renting cars on Turo. You can make a $8,000 investment in a car. It's a car that is probably going to hold some value over a period of time if you're not buying something stupid and expensive. Rent it out for practical use on Toro, and make some income that way, and then flip that into your real estate deal in the future. You don't have to come out of the gate slinging multifamilies, but you can build up to it one investment at a time.
And it's slow and steady, man. And like, I have to constantly go back to my mindset because, like, once you get that first taste of that, like, positive cash flow and everything, you're like, man, how fast can we get this going? And you don't want to make any mistakes along the way. And there's a lot of shiny objects in and around the real estate world. There's a lot of it's so sexy to say passive income right now. And there are people everywhere that claim they got the best passive income. They got this. So not only did I research, the domain, but I researched the owner of the capital company. I wanted to know what his backstory was. I wanted to know, the last person he kissed, where he was vacationing to, everything, and to feel comfortable about doing this. And I did all that, and I felt comfortable, confident, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to take this chance. And so far, it's been a really great experience. Again, this is something new to me, but this is something that I see, I can build up these domains and have this monthly cash flow that, can make a world of difference in a short period of time with not that much capital. And, that's sort of the name of the game right now. And Pat, like I want to touch back to you. Like, we talked about the domains a little bit, and we were talking, I was like, man, I don't want to do YouTube monetization. It's not that I don't think it works, but I believe in American small businesses more. And I believe in, like, I want that guy who's, slinging siding in Minnesota to bring home the butter and support his family because I chose his domain. And, I'm all about helping others in the same sense too. And when it's just that clickbait and those monetization, it just, for me and my moral compass, where I want to go. I mean, like, I'm a public school teacher, man. Like, I live to serve, and I live to help people. So, I even got as far as, once these take off and I have enough domains, now this is all if it happens and we're taking our time and everything, but you can't help but to be forward thinking. I want to start a deal. It's called the 2020 deal. And it's, I'll give you 20% return on your investment in 20 months or less. So I want to have people give me money for these domains. I use other people's money to buy the domain. I give them a 20% return in 20 months or less. They're happy. I'm happy. I get to keep the cash producing asset of the domain. Everybody wins.
Love it, man.
I come from I come from a super blue collar family where, a lot of my family members have bad credit. Nobody will fund them. Can get them started to get their rental property, their investment property. And they're always saying, like, man, my credit's bad, but I have this lump sum of money. It's not doing anything. And I was like, maybe I could help you. Maybe we could help each other. If I can give somebody a 20% return on their investment in 20 months or less, like, who's doing that? The stock market's not doing that right now. You're not, even if you're getting that in STRs, you still got to have the credit and all the credentials, and the DTI's got to be good and everything. And most people don't have that.
Exactly. I mean, so, on this podcast, we talk about all things, to help you get to financial independence. And I love learning about new things, whether it's domains, whether it's about, YouTube video monetization and all of this other stuff, STRs, long-term rentals, like everything. So, I mean, I want to learn more about it because it sounds extremely interesting. But I also want to know, because we didn't really get to the part on how you were able to lock down that line of credit, because you said you called like 30 some banks and were saying the wrong verbiage. Like, so for everyone out there wondering, like, well, what did he actually say? Like, what did you actually say to get that line of credit?
So here's my failures to success. And I want to start way back when you're looking to get pre-approved to buy your first short-term rental. And here are some of the situations that can happen that I wish somebody had taught me, that you need to be forward thinking in terms of how you're going to leverage your return on equity and what you're going to do when you have over $50,000 of equity. So it all goes back to the loan. I got approved for an investment property loan at 25% down. Now, here's what bites you in the butt. Felipe Mejia said that all you have to do is call up the banks and say it's for your second property, your vacation home. It's your second property. Well, that works if you got a second home loan at 10% down, because when they go to look at your tax returns, the underwriters for that line of credit, they see that you got it as an investment property loan and they will not touch you. The book closes right on you right there. So if you're thinking about this and you're forward thinking and you're at the point now where you're looking to get pre-approved, you got to even think that much further ahead. And if you really want this to be this life-changing financial freedom thing, these are the necessary steps and the hiccups that I had to endure so that I hope your listeners do not have to. So think about that. If you want to go in any route using equity on a short-term rental, most likely it's got to be in that second home loan. They're going to look back and see that you have an investment property loan and they're not going to touch you. Now, I had to then go to the commercial side. And there are very few banks who are even giving out commercial loans for short-term rentals. So I just had to hit the commercial side of lending and ask everybody every question that I could get on a phone call and be like, who's doing this? How can I get this done? On top of that, every lender and every small bank to every big bank has completely different structured terms, lengths of draw periods versus payback periods, prime plus 1, prime plus 1.25, prime plus this, prime, so you have to really dive into that and make sure you've done your due diligence. I mean, I was at 32 banks and I got nowhere. Nobody would even look at me. So through that whole process and looking at the structures of their terms and everything, I mean, everything from origination fees to annual fees, they're vastly different from $100 for an annual fee to $500. So really be forward thinking even about how you structure the loan of this investment property and what that looks like leveraging your asset a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later.
Anthony, I love it, man. I mean, I think people need to really think forward, like you're saying, about how they're going to leverage their portfolio moving forward. Because that's, leverage in this game, that's real estate. It comes naturally. And that's how you're going to expand and scale. We've talked to a lot of people who want to keep high equity positions in their real estate. That's a great alternative path to go. But if you're looking to squeeze every penny you can at this present moment to just compound your wealth and get the ball rolling, it takes some thought and it takes some creativity. And, you've been dropping some great hints for us and our listeners. But, looking at that and looking at everything you got on the table currently, have you identified any obstacles that might be standing in the way between you and getting to where you're going to be in Pennsylvania, going from east to west with getting all your STRs up and running?
So the biggest thing, and James, I actually wanted to get some of your perspective on this, is starting in November, I go for my PA real estate license. And it's the big debate if you become a real estate or if you become an investor in rentals, should you get your real estate license? And for me, I feel that it's a super edge. I mean, you get access to the MLS, you get access to a bunch of connections in the real estate world, investing world and market. So for me, one of the things that I was like, all right, I'm at a point now where, again, I'm not lighting the world on my public school teaching salary paycheck. So my DTI at this point, I'm maxed out. To get another STR and to throw even $200,000 down, I don't know if too many lenders would approve me for that. So what do I have to do now? I got to network. I got to establish relationships. I got to find out these off-market deals that are going to be seller financed. And how am I going to do that? Well, why don't I get a side gig of real estate, being a real estate in real estate sales? Why don't I start making those connections? Real estate school for me, it was $400 to do that. And I was like, are you crazy? That's the best investment I could ever make this year.
Yeah, I was just having this conversation with somebody today. One of my clients who's they're on their financial independence journey and trying to get out of the W-2, and they're like, why not just get my license, maybe sell some houses on the side and see where that goes. I think an obstacle you're going to face with getting a license and where you're trying to take your business is having MLS access across the state, because it's going to be at least in North Carolina, it's a whole bunch of different MLSs. Ours is pretty expansive area, but you're probably going to run into that obstacle, and it is expensive. Plus, also knowing a market specifically, that's where you're going to get a lot of benefit from hiring a local agent. But if you're going to be working like doing deals locally that you can get to, like Poconos isn't too far away, you're going to buy a couple more up there. That might make total sense for sure.
Right.
But like you were saying, like it's super cheap to get your real estate license and to have the access to and the tools and the ability to network and see those listings right away from MLS. Like it's super valuable. It'll make you a lot of money. Plus, you create referral opportunities as well. You affiliate with a brokerage, you start meeting people who want to buy, you refer them to other agents that are doing STRs elsewhere. You got 25%, referral fee, just like that. Pays for the license.
Right, exactly. And like, even down to just initiating that conversation. Hey, I'm a real estate agent and I'm looking to invest in your market. Going on those Facebook groups, I'm a real estate agent. I'm looking to invest in this market. Is there anybody I can talk to? I just feel like that barrier to entry, once you have that real estate agent, badge, other real estate agents are much more welcome and likely to help you and know that you're a serious investor and know that you're, how to run your numbers and how to. So I just think that it all in all, it's a win-win. And I think that if anything, it can't hurt. So why not? And why not get more educated on the thing that I'm trying to be financially free with?
Right.
I mean,
Exactly. Like, why not? And I think you're right. You're heading in all the right directions, man. Like with everything you got going on, with where your mindset is, with where your energy is, where your focus is, it's just, building that solid foundation and keep adding these different things in there. And man, I definitely think that you're on your way. And I think this is a perfect segue into the next segment of the show that James and I like to call the Big Four.
You should have
All right,
asked
James,
Anthony
take it away.
what it was called. I'm sure he does. You've listened to the episodes enough. You know what's coming, man. So, Anthony, give us your FI hack, man. Your cheat code that you do day to day, business, personal, whatever it might be, that propels you forward. What's your cheat code?
Listen, coming from a guy that was virtually house poor, getting sued by the first girlfriend he ever moved into his house, to figuring out foundation issues that put me in the hole and everything. My biggest cheat code is mindset. And every morning I get up 2 hours early. I read for an hour. I go to the gym for an hour and I get my mind in the right place no matter what. And I got to tell you guys, like, once you work that mindset muscle, it's so hard in the beginning and it's putting in the reps and it's training your mind that even when it goes to the dark places, you got to pull yourself back out and you got to calm yourself down. And when the foundation guy comes in and says, this thing is falling down, you owe us, this much money, you got to talk to yourself and be your own best friend and keep giving your own self the confidence, because it can be super lonely in real estate investing. And there are not too many people who understand what you're doing, who understand what you're talking about, the lingo, the leverage, the situations, everything. So you have to have that rock solid mindset. And when I say that, I don't mean I'm perfect and I'm happy all the time, because there are times when I am just like, this is insane. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I got denied by the 32nd bank. Like, what is going on here? And you got to look in the mirror and high five yourself and be like, man, look how far you've come. Look at what you've done. Look at the education you've given yourself. Keep going, keep pushing, figure out a way. It's that mindset, man. That is everything.
Boom. Mindset. Such a great answer, man. I absolutely love it. That's so inspiring for the listeners out there. All right, the next one. Let's get into it. We call this one resources. So, what are some of those books, podcast or people that all the other listeners out there need to go check out that have inspired and motivated you?
So I'm going to give you guys two books. And I mean, I've literally been thinking about this all day because I knew the question was coming. And it was my first, my only, and my last answer for the foreseeable future, man. The first book is What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. So this guy is a research, he researches mindset and he researches brain activity through mindset. And he gives you a play-by-play book on how to get started. Because I can say mindset, 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 and everybody's like, well, cool, how do I do that? How do I get started? How do I do this? This is insane. And, with mindset, it's not, I went to the gym and 6 months later, I can actually see definitions in my biceps. Like I can see the visible results. You don't necessarily see those results. You start to feel them, but it's a very slow and steady, sort of change that it takes time. So he gives you a play-by-play. Like when I said high five yourself in the mirror, that's from his book. When I say get up every morning and start reading and start practicing mindset, start journaling, yada, 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 everything. He even said, like, he was like, every day when I take a shower, I stop listening to music and I only listen to positive self-talk affirmations. That's it. It's been like almost a year now that I switched that. And he said, like, he used the example, he took his shower time. That can be 15 minutes. That can be an hour every day. And it's just, you're plugging those repetitions into your subconscious the whole time. And I'm not saying I repeat every single word or it's on in the background. Sometimes I repeat it, sometimes I don't. But I'm telling you guys, it works. There is power to this. It's crazy. And the second book would be the follow-up. It's called The Gap in the Gain by Dan Sullivan. This guy, he's the author of also Who Not How. This was his second book, and this is all about mindset too, but it's all about taking your mindset and looking backwards from where you came from, not measuring yourself looking forwards. If you measure yourself looking forwards, you're always going to feel like you never accomplish anything because, even as real estate investors, we know I want to get to $10,000 a month. And then you get to 10,000 and you go, now what? I want to get to 20,000 a month. And you get to 20, it just keeps going. So you're constantly measuring yourself against this unattainable, adjusting measurement that you're never going to feel complete success. Well, he changes that all around and says, measure yourself from where you started, measure yourself from where you come from. So I am always talking to myself being, you were that broke public school teacher who was getting sued, who was house poor, and now you have an STR, a digital domain, and you're killing it. So for me, it's constantly looking back and applauding myself for what I've done and how far I've come.
I love that, man. I mean, it does all start with mindset. I love that answer to the first two questions, have that. And let's throw all that looking back out the window and let's look 5 years into the future. Just joking, but next question, future you 5 years from now, like I want you to paint the picture. Maybe it's not setting the goal of the $10,000 a month passive income, but what does your life look like? And like, tell us a little bit about why you're building what you're building, but paint that picture for us five years from now.
Right. So for me, with that mindset and everything, I adopted that abundance mindset. And if I'm in the right and I'm helping other people, the abundance, the money, the connections, they will come. Right. So for me, I forgot to mention, I'm a health and phys ed teacher. So right now I'm in elementary education, and on all these podcasts, on all these interviews, all I hear is, what would you do if you told yourself, your 18-year-old self, this? And they would be like, I would have started earlier. I wish somebody would have taught me this. So I made the commitment to say, you know what, I'm in an elementary school, but I can tie health and phys ed into financial literacy. It's very easy. I made the commitment that within 1 year, I was going to get a high school job and be a high school teacher. And not only did I nail that on the head, but I'm about to start this November working at the high school that my childhood best friend has worked at for the last 10 years. So like, this is something where I'm not only going to be able to teach my high school students financial literacy, but I'm working with my best friend, my childhood best friend, in the same school. And again, that abundance mindset and everything, I never pictured it to end up this way. So one of the things is, I want 5 years from now, I want to teach as many high school students. I want to get them thinking about financial literacy. I want to get them thinking about what they can do, post-college, post-high school, to start that journey, because I started at 28. What if I started at 18? What if I knew, what if I read Rich Dad Poor Dad at 18? Nobody ever talked to me about that. You know what I mean? It was 2005. Nobody was talking about that. So for me, it's like, man, if I could introduce even one person to financial independence and how they can improve their life, it's that. It also looks, for me, I'm married, and me and my future wife are the Prince and Princess of PA. Like I would love to have, if I have the Philly house and the Pocono house in 5 years, I'd love to have the Lancaster house and the house in Pittsburgh, man. I really would. I'd love to have a PA4 portfolio. And those domains are just, my extra, piggy bank that is running up. So for me, it's like conquering PA in 5 years. Yeah, I can do that. I can conquer PA in 5 years.
Fantastic. And I know we'll definitely have you back on, man.
I was just thinking to myself, Patrick, like, this is going to be a great episode for like, where have they been and where have they gone, 2 years from now, checking in where you're at, Anthony. It's, the progress you're going to make. It's going to be incredible. You've got the right mindset for it. And that's 90% of the battle.
It is. It really is. I truly believe that.
It is. And I love for everyone that's, still listening along to, give you a shout out on, again, we want to showcase all different types of investors, all different people from all different backgrounds. It doesn't matter if, you have 400 units and worth $100 million, or you've got, 2 properties and you're doing all the right things to get you to the next step. That's the whole point of this podcast. That's the whole point of bringing on the guests that we do. That's the whole point of providing all this information and, to you guys out there listening. It's to help you in any way possible through our guests, through James and I's experiences, to educate, motivate, and inspire. And Anthony, I definitely have to say you have done that for me. And I'm sure there's listeners out there that want to know how they can connect with you, maybe stay at your Poconos Airbnb, connect with you on Instagram. So let the people know where they can reach out and find you.
First and foremost, I got to shout out you guys and this podcast because there was a point in my real estate journey when you had Blaine and Lily Kosick on, and Blaine did the thing where he shouted out his cell phone number on the podcast. And he said, anybody wants to reach out, anybody wants to talk. And not only, like, when I say real estate investing is lonely, like, it's super lonely. And we made the connection. He was a health and phys ed teacher that turned realtor that now is, they're crushing it. Pat, we talked about it. James, we talked about it too. Like, it's insane. So that little act of abundance and support out to the viewers. I was that viewer that was lonely. I was that viewer that hadn't made a serious connection with anyone. And I texted Blaine and I was like, hey man, I just listened to the Real FI podcast. You gave your number out. I'm really reaching out here out of my comfort zone. Like, can we just talk? Can I just talk to you about some things? And he was like, absolutely. We ended up doing like almost a 2-hour conversation Zoom call. And it just, the support and the acknowledgement and the fact that somebody was 3 steps ahead of me who was in my exact position. I mean, this was a Chicago public school teacher, man. Like, he did it, I can do it. And like, it lit me on fire. So first and foremost, I want to give out my cell phone to the listeners. If you guys need to talk, if you need any help, if you just want to run some numbers by me, I love talking this and I love helping people. So my phone number is 215-518-0541. Don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to, get in contact, see what you're doing, help you out in any way I can. If listeners want to check out the Pocono place, it's Instagram handle Elmwood_escape. So you can reach out there. If you're going on the Airbnb app, it's just, you can search in the Poconos and then you can search Elmwood Escape. And then I'll reach out. It's funny, like, my personal Instagram is like, I'm barely on it anymore now that I have a short-term rental. So if you want to get in contact with me, it'd probably be better reaching out to me on Elmwood Escape Instagram. But my personal Instagram is at AJ Scorney. I keep it pretty private because I'm still kind of like, I still want to have that little bit of privacy yet. I'm not that comfortable with the social media world and being that exposed yet. I'm getting there. I want to get there. I want to, but just DM me, let me know you heard the episode and you want to talk, and I'll gladly, accept your friend requests and everything else.
Hell yeah, man. All right. You guys know the drill. If you were motivated, if you were inspired, if you got any sort of value out of this podcast, you guys know the drill. Leave us a review. That's all we ask. Go ahead. Google, Apple, Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, like this video, comment, do something, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Real FI podcast, where you learn from the investors that have lived the hard lessons for you. To connect with us during your pursuit of financial independence, be sure to join our community by following us on Instagram or emailing us at info@therealfi.com. If this content made you financially, mentally, physically, or spiritually richer, please make sure to leave us a positive review on your preferred content platform. Cheers to kicking the 9 to 5.